Thank you for joining us. I am Felicity Ezewike. Our coverage tonight begins in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where the country's organized labor unions say they will commence a nationwide indefinite strike from Monday, June the 3rd, until a new minimum wage is announced. The leadership of the unions made this known in Abuja, saying that government has refused to accede to their demands, which includes the review of national minimum wage and the reversal in the hike of the electricity tariff. Marvelous Obomanu reports.
With inflation now well over 30% as of today, many Nigerians are unanimous in agreeing that a 30,000 Naira minimum wage being received by workers is no longer tenable. Despite ongoing negotiations between the federal government and the organized labor, both teams have been unable to meet a compromise. While government has proposed about 60,000 Naira against the figure being suggested by labor, this has been outrightly rejected by the labor negotiating team.
As of today, there is no minimum wage for Nigerian workers, technically, by the expiration of the act, by 18th of April. So as at now, we're operating without any law, backing up the minimum wage. They were talking about 100% increase. That's what they have offered. But the 100% increase amounts to one loaf of bread per day for 30 days. That's what it amounts. They're not looking at the quality or the value of what they are offering to us.
Another issue Labour is raising is the hike in electricity tariff. While recently the union had protested, demanding a reversal, it is also calling on government to do the needful.
On the 13th of May, we had a protest to NEROC and to some of the discos, registering our displeasure. That up till today, there is no word from the government. Our demand was that there should be a reversal from 225 Naira per kilowatt down to where it was before, 66 Naira per kilowatt.
The president of the Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo, during a joint news conference with the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress in Abuja, says Labour has concluded plans to commence an indefinite strike.
We are hereby declaring the commencement of a nationwide industrial action, a nationwide strike, effective from Monday, June 3rd, 2024. And this strike shall be indefinite. And this strike shall be on until we have a new national minimum wage.
Until we sign an agreement on what is mutually agreeable by the parties, our action will be on. But our action is not such that we will not equally negotiate. Because the two parties are now going to negotiate under duress. We're under pressure. They will be under pressure.
With many Nigerians still battling with the increasing cost of living, many are optimistic that government will yield to labor's demand and review the nation's minimum wage to a living wage. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomanu.
Thank you, Marvelous. To discuss this, we're joined by two gentlemen. Ndubuaku Theophilus, Chairman, Political Commission NLC, and the Public Affairs Analyst, Francis Chilaka. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I'll start with you, Theophilus. 60,000 Naira compared, if you contrast it to over 400,000 Naira being demanded by the labor unions. What's your thinking as to the implication of this continuing deadlock between the government and the labor when it comes to the minimum wage?
Well, first of all, we started they started with 48. They moved to 54, and then they now moved to 57. They came to 60. The first thing we've been asking them to do is to break it down. the 615 that we gave them, we broke it down to the, allocated the costs for housing, electricity, utility, water, even kerosene, food, medical, clothing, education, sanitation, and transportation. That was how we broke it down. And then we are talking about living wage. Now, you should realize that, this minimum wage is supposed to be for a family of 6. So when we say you are paying somebody a minimum wage, you are supposed to take care of himself, his wife, and 4 children. That's what the basic calculation is. And then when you look at that, the 60,000 they are offering now, if you compare it with the 30,000 that we are having already, when we had that 30,000, the dollar value was 360. Now, with the 60,000, you find out that it is not even up to half what the dollar value was at the time we had 30,000. So for you to be saying that, you are reducing the minimum wage, and we're also saying this, as we speak now, the minimum take-home pay of the civil servant the civil servant is 77,000, because initially they added 40% on 30,000, which was the minimum wage, and then added another wage award of 35. That brought it to 77,000. Now it's so ridiculous that we are now going there and they are talking about 60,000 minimum wage, which is like asking us to do wage reduction negotiation. We are negotiating wage reduction. So that 60,000 is a no-no in the first place. That's the situation. And we have asked them, break it down, break the 60,000 naira down so that we know. Like, we have been saying, the president said, that 60,000 can only give you 1 loaf of bread for 1 person for 30 days. Because 1 loaf of bread now is 2,000. So it can only give you 1 loaf of bread for just 1 person for 30 days.
Quite a situation we're in currently. Chilaka, let me ask you, this is not the first time Labour is going on strike. But then again, the economy is at a very precarious position at this time. What would be the impact of this action on the nation's economy?
Well, it's going to be disastrous. It's going to be painful. It's going to be sad. But you see, the reality on ground is that those on the helms of affairs are not thinking like Nigerians. They're not thinking like people that are living in Nigeria just like every other person is living. Because if you're offering somebody 60,000 naira per month as a minimum wage, it begins to call to question the mindset of those in government and the mindset of those who are negotiating on behalf of government. Because you need to come to a negotiation table bearing in mind the current economic realities. And the current economic realities is such that, things are difficult, prices of food items, everything has gone up. And then coupled with the fact that government, before now, on the 29th of May 2023, said subsidy is gone, which is where this whole problem started from. So if you look at that 60,000 naira and you look at the present economic realities, you'll find out that Nigerians are already suffering. But then the strike means that they either suffer it now and find a lasting solution, or they chicken out and continue to wallow in poverty.
I'm tempted to reiterate a question. That strike hasn't often given us what we want in this country in recent times. You hear of strike today, it's called off, there is a conversation. And that brings me to you, Theophilus. There is concern about government's commitment to conversations and discussions when it comes to negotiations like this. News reports indicate that there was only the Minister for Labour, State for Labour, that was at the negotiation. There was no governors, there were no other top decision makers at the negotiation table with the labour unions. What worries you about this seeming lack of intention to show commitment by the government when it comes to issues like this?
Yes, because, we started sensing this from the beginning. You can imagine a situation where we are negotiating minimum wage. There was no governor there, and there are supposed to be 6 governors. There was only 1 minister. The head of service was not there. And then you now are negotiating with people, permanent secretaries, who don't have the authority to enter into any agreements. So now the question is, it means that it was not the priority of government, that they don't take it as something serious. That this poverty, this issue of poverty in this country, this issue of crisis in this country, economic crisis, food crisis, insecurity, because all these things boil down to seriousness in governance. Now everything is getting too bad, and then you are negotiating a salary, minimum wage, and then the government is not there. That's the way I'll put it. And so if they are not there, like we told them, that if they cannot reach the president to enter into agreements, to tell us what they think should be offered, because what they are offering is just not, they have not started. If we are telling them, 500 and we started with 615, and then now we are at 494, and then they are offering 60. And even today, there was they didn't even move. This 60 was the 60 they offered when we walked out the last time. And they didn't even, they said, oh, that's the maximum they can do. And so what we are now saying is this, all right, let it be that when we start the strike, the president will now show his face, or the president will now invite them to come and explain to him.
All right, in the interest of time, I'll just come to you, Chilaka, quickly. For a government who has severally said they prioritize the welfare of citizens, what worries you about this seeming lack of commitment to the process, and what actions do they need to take as quickly as possible so that we can de-escalate the possibility of strike taking too long?
Well, I think the first and first is that we need to come to that realization that the government is taking labor for granted. The government believes deep down that, all labor can do is to back. And by the time too long, and the sensitivity of government towards the plight of the Nigerian worker. So for me, I think the right thing for government to do, which is what I've proposed, is that government may not yield up to 400,000, but government should be looking at about 150 to 200,000. It makes a lot of sense, because at that you can say, okay, this is minimum. People can survive on it. But the truth of the matter is that this government, as far as I'm concerned, they have no pity. They have no patience. They believe that labor will always chicken out.
All right. We'll have to leave it there for now. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for talking with us, and we hope to see an end to this situation soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, too.